"Are you sure you want me?" asked the vampire queen. Yet I chose her. The first thing the humans noticed about the vampirian world was how quiet it was. The planet, bathed in shades of dark crimson and violet skies, seemed almost asleep. There were no birds, no rustle of small animals, nothing that resembled life as humans knew it. Yet despite the silence, the humans felt watched. Every shadow seemed alive. Every breeze carried a whisper, though none could say what it meant. The team of human explorers had landed cautiously, their transport craft humming quietly in the alien night. Among them was Dr. Elias Kane, a xenobiologist and diplomat who had been chosen for this mission not because he was the strongest or fastest, but because he understood beings, even when they were terrifying. Elias stepped off the craft, feeling the chill of the air against his skin. The ground was smooth, almost metallic in its texture, yet warm underfoot, like it had absorbed some strange sunlight from years ago. In the distance, the palace rose like a mountain of black stone and crimson glass, twisting toward the sky in a design that seemed impossible to human architecture. Its spires glimmered, reflecting a faint light that seemed to come from nowhere. The other humans whispered in awe and fear. Elias, however, felt a strange calmness. He had studied the Vampirian for years, their history, their politics, their abilities. He knew that showing fear here could be deadly. As they approached the gates of the palace, the massive doors swung open silently, as if the building itself had been waiting for them. A single figure appeared, standing tall and regal. She was beautiful in a way that felt both ancient and dangerous. Her skin was pale, almost glowing in the dim light. Her hair was black as night, flowing like liquid silk. Her eyes were red, but not the harsh, angry red one might expect from legends. It was a deep, knowing red, the kind that could see through lies, through pretenses, through the deepest corners of a human's mind. She spoke, her voice soft but commanding, carrying clearly across the open courtyard. "Are you sure you want me?" she asked. The words made the humans shiver. They were not a question asked lightly. In Vampirian culture, this was a test, a challenge. To even be invited into her presence was rare. To hear her speak these words was nearly unheard of. Elias felt the gaze of the queen like a physical weight. Most humans would have stumbled, mumbled, or tried to back away. But Elias stood firm. He met her gaze without hesitation, though his heart did beat faster than usual. "I choose you," he said, his voice steady. There was no fear, no pleading, no apology, just truth. For a moment the queen's eyes narrowed. She tilted her head slightly, studying him. A human had never said this to her, not with such calm certainty. Usually humans came with fear, with arrogance, or with blind hope. None of that was here. Elias simply chose her, and in that choice he was dangerous in a way she had not anticipated. The queen moved closer, her steps silent on the ground. Her presence was overwhelming, and yet there was no immediate threat in her posture. She circled him slowly, like a predator examining its prey, but Elias was not prey. He understood animals, instincts, and patterns. He could read this too. She was curious, testing him, trying to understand why he would say such a thing. "You speak as if you know what you are stepping into," she said finally, her tone calm but edged with warning. "Do you?" "I know enough to make the choice," Elias replied, "and sometimes that is all it takes." The queen paused, her eyes locking onto his again. There was a flicker of something unreadable in her gaze. Perhaps it was interest, perhaps caution, perhaps amusement. For the humans who watched from behind, it was terrifying to see her shift from a ruler to something more instinctive, more alive. "Very well," she said. "You will not leave here unchanged. And neither will I." The doors behind her opened wider, and the humans followed cautiously. Inside, the palace was even stranger than the exterior had suggested. The walls pulsed faintly, almost breathing, and the air was scented with a strange mixture of metal and flowers, sharp and sweet at the same time. Shadows moved in ways that defied normal physics, stretching, shrinking, disappearing, and reappearing in corners where no light reached. Elias noticed every detail, storing it in his mind. It was clear the palace itself was alive, or at least responsive to the queen's presence. They entered a large hall tall enough to make humans feel small, with columns that twisted like living vines. The queen walked ahead and Elias followed. She spoke little, letting the silence weigh on him. That silence was part of her power. Humans relied on words, explanations, reasoning. Silence forced them to reveal themselves, to show fear or arrogance in ways they could not control. But Elias stayed calm. He let the silence speak both ways. Finally, she stopped in a room at the center of the palace. It was circular with walls that shimmered as if made of liquid light. At the center was a raised platform, and she motioned for him to step forward. "If you truly choose me," she said, "you must understand the rules of my world. You must be willing to see what others will not. And you must survive what others could not." Elias nodded, not out of fear, but out of understanding. "I am ready to learn." A faint smile touched her lips, almost imperceptible. "Most humans fail before they even begin. I wonder, will you?" She extended a hand. The air seemed to warp around it. It was not a touch to be taken lightly. Yet Elias did not hesitate. He took her hand. The warmth, or perhaps the lack of warmth, shocked him for a fraction of a second, but he held firm. In that moment, he felt a connection, not of friendship or love, but of challenge and acknowledgement. He was no longer just a human in a palace. He was part of something larger, a force she could not ignore. The queen led him further into the palace, into rooms filled with strange artifacts, some glowing faintly, others pulsing as if alive. She did not explain them. Explanation was unnecessary. Observation was the key. Elias noticed patterns, connections, and possibilities. This was a test, and he had begun to play it. Hours passed, though it felt like minutes. Time in this palace did not flow normally, he realized. The queen spoke occasionally, asking questions designed to unsettle him, to probe his mind, to see where his loyalties and fears lay. Yet Elias answered carefully, truthfully, and without hesitation. Every answer, every reaction earned a subtle nod or frown. He began to understand her patterns, how she judged, how she assessed, how she controlled her world. By the time night, or what resembled night, fell over the palace, the queen paused in a chamber that overlooked a vast valley of crimson light. The sky above shimmered with strange stars that moved like living creatures. She turned to Elias, her eyes searching his once more. "You have endured longer than most," she said. "You have not faltered, yet you must understand this is only the beginning. My world is not kind to outsiders, and my people will not forgive weakness." Elias looked out over the valley, feeling the weight of her words. Yet he did not feel fear. Fear would make him weak, and weakness was not an option. "I understand," he said simply. For a moment the queen did not speak. Then she whispered almost to herself, "Perhaps you are different." That was all he needed to hear. In the silence that followed, Elias knew one thing. The choice he had made, the choice to face the vampire queen, was dangerous, unprecedented, and possibly the most important decision of his life. Yet he did not regret it. Humans had a habit of turning impossible situations into victories. They did not always win, but they adapted, and they survived. And perhaps that was why he had been chosen for this mission in the first place. As they walked deeper into the palace, Elias felt a strange energy around him. It was not threatening, not exactly. It was alive, aware, responsive. It watched him, tested him, and acknowledged him in a way no human had ever experienced. And he smiled faintly, realizing that perhaps, in choosing the vampire queen, he had also chosen a new path for humanity itself. A path that no one, not even the queen, could have predicted. The night stretched on, filled with silent corridors, shifting shadows, and the occasional glimmer of eyes watching from the darkness. Elias moved steadily, confidently, knowing that every step he took was being measured, recorded, and understood. And somewhere deep in the palace, the vampire queen whispered again, almost in challenge. "Are you truly ready for me?" Elias met her gaze without hesitation. "I already am." The vampire queen led Elias through the winding corridors of the palace. Each hallway seemed to shift subtly as they walked, as if the building itself was alive and observing them. The walls pulsed faintly, changing color from deep crimson to soft violet, and shadows moved in ways that defied explanation. Elias noticed it all, recording every detail in his mind. This was not just a palace, it was a test, a living labyrinth designed to measure patience, perception, and resilience. After several minutes of walking in near silence, the queen stopped in a chamber that opened into a vast hall. The ceiling stretched far above them, its height impossible to estimate. Faint lights glimmered along the edges, casting shadows that danced and shifted. The air carried a faint hum, a vibration that seemed to echo in Elias' chest. "You have entered my world," the queen said, her voice soft but commanding. "Here the rules are not yours, here the strong survive and the clever thrive. Humans have never passed beyond this point. Most fail before the first trial even begins." Elias nodded. "I understand," he said. His voice was calm, steady, carrying neither fear nor doubt. He had prepared for this moment, studied every known fact about the Vampirian, and trained his mind to react quickly to anything. The Queen's eyes glimmered with interest. She gestured for him to step forward. "Then we begin. You will face 3 trials. Your mind, your courage, and your heart will all be tested. Fail, and you will leave, or worse, you will never leave at all." Elias took a deep breath and stepped onto the center of the hall. The floor beneath him shimmered, forming intricate patterns of light that seemed to react to his presence. He felt a slight vibration under his feet, almost like a heartbeat. The first trial began without warning. Suddenly, the shadows around him surged forward, taking the shapes of creatures he had only read about in legend. Tall, dark, with glowing eyes, they moved in perfect coordination, circling him from all sides. Elias held his ground, analyzing their movements. He knew these shadows were not real in the sense of living beings. They were tests, projections of the Queen's power designed to intimidate and unsettle. He remembered something from his training: fear is the mind's enemy. Calm observation is its ally. Elias focused on the patterns of the shadows, noticing that each one moved slightly after the others, as if following a hidden rhythm. He mimicked the rhythm with his steps, moving carefully, steadily, and without panic. The shadows adjusted, testing him further, but he continued to observe and respond. Minutes passed, though they felt like hours. Then, as if satisfied, the shadows faded into the walls, leaving the hall silent once more. Elias exhaled, but he knew this was only the beginning. The Queen's voice echoed in the hall. "You survived the first trial. Now the second awaits. This will test your courage. Many humans falter here, for they must face what they most fear. Tell me, human, what do you fear most?" Elias thought carefully. To lie would show weakness. To hesitate could be fatal. "I fear failure," he admitted. "I fear letting those who trust me down, but I do not fear trying." A smile, faint but perceptible, touched the Queen's lips. "Then your courage is real. We shall see if it is enough." The walls of the hall shimmered again, and the air grew cold. From the shadows emerged visions, images so vivid they seemed real. Elias saw humans from his past missions, friends and colleagues, facing dangers he could not prevent. He saw himself failing them, unable to protect or save anyone. The illusions pressed closer, whispering accusations, doubts, and fears. Every instinct screamed to run, to shield himself, to escape the weight of the visions. But Elias did not move. Instead, he faced each vision directly, acknowledging it. "I cannot change the past," he said aloud, his voice steady. "I can only act now, and I will act with courage." The illusions reacted to his words, twisting, writhing, and then fading. A silence followed, heavier than before, yet less oppressive. Elias realized he had passed the second trial. He had faced fear without letting it control him. The Queen's voice rang again, closer this time. "You are surprising. Most humans crumble here. Few even speak the truth to themselves. Yet your heart remains untested. The final trial will reveal it." The floor beneath Elias' feet glowed, forming a circle of light. He felt an invisible force pulling him toward the center, and he stepped carefully. The hall transformed. Walls melted away, leaving him suspended in darkness. Stars, brighter than any he had seen, surrounded him, stretching endlessly in all directions. He was alone, except for a faint presence he could feel but not see. A voice, soft yet filled with power, spoke directly into his mind. "You have proven your mind, your courage, your choices. But can you trust? Can you open your heart to the unknown, to me, and to the world you do not yet understand?" Elias closed his eyes, feeling the vastness around him. He thought of the humans who had sent him here, the responsibilities he carried, the unknown dangers he might face. Yet he also thought of the Queen, her challenge, her strength, her intelligence, and the connection that had begun to form between them. "I trust," he said finally, his voice steady in the silence of his mind. "I trust that I can learn. I trust that I can face what comes. I trust in my choices." The darkness seemed to pulse, responding to his words. Slowly, the stars around him shifted, forming a path of light that led forward. The Queen's presence, once distant and unknowable, felt closer now, almost tangible. "You surprise me, human," she whispered. "Few have ever faced these trials and emerged unbroken. Few are still with a heart that dares to choose." The path of light ended in a chamber that seemed impossibly large. Crystals hung from the ceiling, reflecting light in every direction. In the center, the Queen waited, her eyes glowing softly. She extended a hand toward him once more. "You have completed the trials. Few humans have this strength. Tell me, do you still choose me? Elias looked into her eyes. He had seen the power she commanded, the tests she could impose, the danger she represented, and yet he did not hesitate. I choose you, he said again. Not out of fear, not out of hope alone, but because I see the truth of this moment. I choose the challenge, the unknown, and the opportunity to stand beside you. The queen studied him silently for a long moment. Then slowly a smile curved her lips. You are different, she said softly. Your mind, your courage, your heart, they are not like other humans. Perhaps you are the one who can survive here and change things in ways no one has imagined. Elias felt a strange sense of relief, though he did not let his guard down. He had passed the trials, but he knew this was only the beginning. The queen's world was dangerous, full of beings far stronger and more cunning than any human he had encountered. And yet, in that moment, he felt something else. Respect, understanding, and perhaps even partnership forming between them. The queen led him further into the chamber where strange devices and artifacts were arranged in precise patterns. Some hummed with energy, others pulsed as if alive. She did not explain their purpose. Explanation was unnecessary. Observation was the key. Elias studied the artifacts, noticing details others might miss, patterns, weaknesses, and possibilities. He realized that every object, every arrangement was a lesson, another part of the trials, another measure of his mind and perception. Hours passed in careful study. The queen occasionally spoke, her questions probing his logic, his instincts, his understanding of her world. Elias answered each thoughtfully, never rushing, never faltering. Slowly, a rhythm formed between them, a silent dialogue of mind and observation, challenge and response. Finally, the queen moved to a window that overlooked the vast valley of the Vampirian world. The stars above shimmered and shifted, reflecting on the crimson plains below. She spoke quietly, almost to herself, yet clearly audible to Elias. Few humans would endure this, fewer would understand it, and even fewer would act with such clarity and courage. Perhaps this is why you chose me. Perhaps this is why I must choose you in return. Elias felt the weight of her words. He had come to this world expecting danger, challenge, and perhaps death. Instead, he had found something unexpected, a connection built on respect, understanding, and courage. He did not yet know what the future would hold, but he knew one thing. In choosing the vampire queen, he had stepped onto a path that would test every part of him, and yet also allow him to grow in ways no human had before. As the first light of a strange alien dawn touched the horizon, Elias stood beside the queen, ready for whatever came next. The trials had ended, but the journey was just beginning. He felt alive, aware, and determined. And somewhere deep in the palace, the queen whispered again, almost inaudibly, "Are you truly ready for what comes next?" Elias turned to face her, meeting her gaze without hesitation. "I already am," he said. And in that simple statement, he made clear that humanity's presence in her world was not a mistake. It was a choice, a challenge, and perhaps the start of something far greater than either of them could yet imagine. Days passed in the palace, though time felt strange, stretched, and twisted in ways Elias could not measure. Each day brought new lessons, new tests, and new observations. The vampire queen did not speak often, but when she did, her words carried weight. They were not lessons in the usual human sense. They were challenges, puzzles of thought, and subtle ways to measure Elias' understanding, courage, and intuition. Elias had learned to adapt. He had learned to watch the smallest details. The way the queen's eyes shifted when she was curious, the way the walls pulsed when a decision was about to be made, and the subtle changes in the palace's air when danger approached. He had begun to understand that the palace was alive, responding to thought, presence, and emotion. But he also understood that this was only a part of her power. The real test was yet to come. It began the night the alarm sounded. A low, resonant hum vibrated through the palace, echoing in corridors and chambers alike. Shadows moved faster than before, and the very walls seemed to tense. Elias felt the queen's presence behind him, powerful and alert. She did not speak at first, simply observed, waiting to see his reaction. "The rogue faction," she said finally, her voice low and sharp. "They have begun their move. They intend to overthrow me and seize control of this world." Elias absorbed the information. He had read about the rogue Vampirian, about their ambition and ruthlessness. They were powerful, cunning, and merciless. Most humans would have panicked, frozen in fear at such news, but Elias did not panic. He felt the weight of responsibility, yes, but also the clarity of strategy forming in his mind. Humans survived by thinking, by adapting, and by turning even impossible situations into advantage. "What do we do?" he asked calmly. The queen's red eyes narrowed. "We fight. But we cannot do it alone. My loyalists are too few, and your species is untested here. You may either aid me or become another casualty of this conflict." Elias nodded. "Then we act together. I will help you, but you must trust that humans can find solutions even when the odds seem impossible." She studied him, a flicker of surprise in her gaze. No human had ever spoken with such confidence in her presence. Most would beg, plead, or attempt deception. Elias offered neither. He simply observed, calculated, and chose to act. That was the moment she realized his strength went beyond courage. It was ingenuity. They began planning immediately. The palace itself offered some protection, but the rogue faction had ways of bypassing physical defenses. Elias suggested using the palace's shifting corridors to their advantage, creating paths that would confuse and trap the invaders. The queen listened, at first skeptical, but as he explained his ideas, her expression shifted from doubt to intrigue. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but sometimes unpredictability was a weapon no other being could counter. Hours passed in preparation. Elias coordinated human and vampirian loyalists, teaching them strategies that combined their abilities with human logic. He suggested using light and shadow to manipulate the enemy's perception, using the palace's own energy to create barriers, and exploiting the natural patterns of vampirian movement to anticipate attacks. When the first strike came, it was sudden. Figures moved like shadows across the valley, approaching the palace with speed and coordination. The rogue vampirian were powerful, their weapons sharp and their minds focused. They expected fear, hesitation, and chaos. Instead, they found order and strategy, guided by a human they had not yet understood. Elias directed the defenses with calm precision. He used signals, gestures, and calculated risk to position loyalists where they could strike effectively. When the rogue vampirian attacked, they found themselves met with unexpected resistance. Traps they had never considered slowed them down. Pathways that seemed direct became dead ends. Light and shadow worked against them, blinding, confusing, and misdirecting their forces. The queen fought beside him, her movements elegant, powerful, and deadly. Yet she relied on his guidance. She allowed him to see what others might have missed, to exploit weaknesses even she had not noticed. And in return, he respected her skill, careful not to interfere with her immense power. Together, they became a team, a combination of human adaptability and vampirian strength that even the rogue faction could not anticipate. Midway through the battle, the rogue leader appeared, a tall, fearsome figure whose presence radiated authority and menace. He laughed, a deep, chilling sound that echoed through the palace. "You dare challenge me with a human at your side?" he sneered. "Pathetic. You are weak, queen, and your human companion, he will die first." Elias felt the threat, yes, but he did not flinch. Instead, he studied the leader's movements, noticing patterns, pauses, and subtle tells. Humans had a way of seeing angles others ignored, and he applied it immediately. Using the shifting corridors and the palace's energy, he directed loyalists to flank the rogue leader, cutting off escape routes while keeping him off balance. The battle intensified. Shadows clashed, weapons glinted, and the air filled with the hum of energy and motion. Yet through it all, Elias remained calm, guiding, observing, and adjusting strategies in real time. He realized something profound. Humans could turn uncertainty into opportunity, fear into calculation, and danger into advantage. And in this alien world, that skill was rare, powerful, and deadly. At a critical moment, the rogue leader charged directly at Elias, expecting to strike down the human first. Elias had anticipated this. Using a combination of quick movement and the palace's energy patterns, he sidestepped, redirecting the leader's momentum into a trap. Loyalists struck from above and below, and the rogue was forced to retreat, temporarily defeated but not destroyed. The queen watched with something close to admiration. "You are extraordinary," she said, her voice loud enough for Elias to hear. "I underestimated your species." Elias did not answer. There was no time. The battle continued and every moment counted, yet he felt a quiet satisfaction. Humans had survived countless dangers on Earth, faced wars, disasters, and impossible odds. That adaptability, that refusal to give up, was now proving itself on a world far beyond anything he had known. As the night wore on, the rogue faction began to falter. Their attacks became less coordinated, more desperate. The palace's defenders, guided by Elias, exploited every mistake. Shadows turned against them, corridors trapped them, and the combined force of loyal Vampirian and humans overwhelmed their ranks. Finally, the rogue leader was cornered. He fought with power and fury, but he could not escape the combined strategy of human ingenuity and Vampirian skill. Elias approached cautiously, knowing that a single misstep could be fatal. The leader lunged, but Elias anticipated it, sidestepping and using the palace's shifting floor to pin him. The battle was over. The rogue faction had been defeated. Silence fell across the palace. The shadows that had moved with such menace now retreated. The air, once tense and vibrating with danger, settled into calm. Elias looked around, exhausted but aware. The queen approached, her eyes glowing softly, no longer sharp with suspicion but bright with acknowledgement. "You have done what no human has done before," she said quietly. "You faced danger, led my people, and survived. You have shown strength, cunning, and courage. I underestimated you, and now I must reconsider what I thought of your species." Elias bowed slightly, not out of fear, but out of respect. "I did what was necessary. Humans survive by learning, adapting, and acting when others hesitate. That is how we succeed." The queen studied him silently for a long moment. Then she extended her hand once more. "You have proven your worth. Few have earned this honor. You have faced the impossible and prevailed. I accept your choice, and I offer you mine in return." Elias took her hand. The connection was powerful, not in a physical sense, but in understanding. Two beings, different in every way, had fought side by side, tested each other, and emerged stronger. He realized then that this partnership was more than survival. It was the beginning of something new, something that could change both their worlds. The rogue faction's threat had been eliminated, but Elias knew the challenges were far from over. There were still mysteries in the palace, still lessons to learn, and still dangers beyond the walls. Yet for the first time, he felt a true sense of belonging, a place where human courage, ingenuity, and heart could stand alongside the greatest powers of the Vampirian world. As dawn approached, strange alien light spilling across the crimson valleys, the queen looked at him once more. "Are you ready for the next step?" she asked. Elias met her gaze without hesitation. "I am," he said. And in that moment, he understood something that no test or trial had yet shown him fully. Humans were more than survival, more than adaptability. They were choice. And choice in the right hands was more powerful than any weapon, any magic, or any legacy of immortality. The queen nodded, a rare smile on her lips. "Then come," she said. "There is much to show you, much to teach you, and much to challenge you still. But for now, you have proven that humanity is a force not to be ignored." Elias followed, feeling the weight and the possibility of what lay ahead. He had faced trials, he had faced danger, and he had proven himself. But most importantly, he had shown that even in a world ruled by beings of incredible power, a human could make a difference. And sometimes, that difference could change the course of history itself. The victory over the rogue faction had brought a brief sense of relief, but Elias knew it would not last. The vampire queen moved with a grace that suggested awareness, yet he sensed tension beneath her calm exterior. The palace, alive as ever, seemed to hum with an anxious energy, warning of challenges still to come. Elias had survived the trials, faced the rogue faction, and proven his worth, but the real test, the one that would decide the future of both humans and Vampirian, was only beginning. It started with a warning. The palace walls trembled faintly as the queen led him into a high chamber overlooking the valley below. She did not speak at first, her red eyes scanning the horizon. Elias followed her gaze, and for the first time he saw them. Ships, unlike anything human or Vampirian, rising from the far edge of the valley. They glowed faintly, black as midnight, but edged with a strange energy that twisted the light around them. He felt a chill, but he did not falter. "What are those?" he asked, his voice steady. "They are not ours," the queen said, her voice low but firm. "They are from beyond the known stars, invaders of a kind we have not faced in centuries. The rogue faction was only the beginning. They test strength, intelligence, and willpower, but these test survival itself." Elias studied the ships carefully. Humans were known for adaptability, and he already saw patterns in the enemy's movement. They moved in coordinated waves, almost like hunting packs. Yet they were rigid in their formation, which meant there would be opportunities for strategy. "We need a plan," he said calmly. "A direct attack will fail. We must use the palace itself, our knowledge of their patterns, and every advantage we can find." The queen's eyes glimmered with approval. "You think like a human," she said. "It is rare for us to value your approach, but perhaps it is time." Elias moved quickly. He coordinated the loyal Vampirian, setting traps, shifting corridors, and deploying energy barriers in key areas. He instructed humans to use their knowledge of improvisation and quick thinking to anticipate enemy moves. Every small decision mattered. Every timing, every step, every misdirection could mean the difference between survival and destruction. When the first wave of invaders struck, chaos erupted. The alien ships descended with speed, and the valley below shook as their energy weapons blasted toward the palace. Elias stayed calm, guiding defenders, predicting movements, and exploiting weaknesses in ways the invaders did not anticipate. Loyal Vampirian and humans fought side by side, creating a rhythm of defense and counterattack. The queen moved among them like a shadow, powerful and unstoppable. Yet she looked to Elias frequently, following his directions, testing his instincts, and allowing him to adapt strategies on the fly. Together, they were a team, her strength, his ingenuity. They were unpredictable, and unpredictability was the edge humans had always possessed. The battle reached a critical point when one of the largest enemy ships descended directly toward the palace's central spire. It emitted a pulse of energy that threatened to collapse the structure. The queen prepared to strike, her power immense, but Elias acted first. He directed the palace's energy systems, channeling the hum of its living walls into a defensive barrier. The ship struck, and for a moment it seemed impossible that the palace could withstand it. But it did. The energy barrier, guided by human logic and quick adaptation, absorbed the attack, redirecting part of the energy back toward the invaders. The ship faltered, then exploded in a controlled collapse that did not harm the palace, but sent the enemy forces into disarray. Elias exhaled, knowing that victory here depended on continued precision. As the invaders regrouped, a larger threat emerged. From the shadows of the valley, creatures, massive alien with armored hides and razor limbs, began to march toward the palace. They were not the ships, they were the ground forces, terrifying in both size and speed. Humans might have faltered here, overwhelmed by fear, but Elias did not. He studied their movement patterns, the rhythm of their steps, and realized that they were organized but predictable. "Use their patterns against them," he instructed the loyalists. "Lead them into the traps, guide them where we want them, and stay calm. They expect chaos, we will give them order." The queen observed silently, then nodded. She unleashed her power, striking the first wave with precision, but she allowed the humans to execute the strategy he devised. Shadows shifted, corridors opened, and traps activated at the perfect moments. One by one, the massive creatures fell, caught in human-designed snares and Vampirian force. Elias felt a strange surge of pride, not in himself alone, but in humanity. Their cleverness, adaptability, and calm under pressure were shining in this alien world, proving that even against overwhelming odds, humans could make a difference. Then the rogue leader, the one Elias had faced before, reappeared amidst the chaos. He had recovered from his earlier defeat and now fought with a fury that could have broken lesser beings. He moved through the battlefield, striking down defenders with deadly precision. Elias realized that this was the true test, not just strategy or strength, but courage, presence, and the ability to inspire others even in the heart of terror. Without hesitation, Elias moved to intercept him. He led the rogue through a series of traps and misdirections, using the palace's living energy to slow and confuse the opponent. When the rogue finally reached him, Elias did not flinch. He used agility, observation, and timing to avoid the strikes, redirecting the rogue into the open where the queen could strike. Together, human and Vampirian coordinated flawlessly, forcing the rogue to retreat once again. The battle continued through the night. The alien forces were relentless, striking with speed and precision, yet Elias remained steady. He adjusted, adapted, and guided, proving that humans could not only survive but influence outcomes in ways others did not anticipate. The palace, alive as ever, seemed to respond to his presence, enhancing defenses and creating opportunities at crucial moments. By the time dawn approached, the valley was quiet once more. The enemy had been defeated or driven back, their forces scattered and broken. The palace had survived, the loyalists had prevailed, and the queen stood beside Elias, her eyes glowing with a mixture of relief and admiration. "You have done what I thought impossible," she said softly. "You have guided my people, used strategy, and faced danger without faltering. Humans, perhaps I have underestimated your species all along." Elias shook his head. "I did not do it alone. We worked together. Humans survive by learning, adapting, and acting with clarity when others hesitate. That is our strength, and so is yours. When we combine it, we are unstoppable." The queen studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable yet softened. "Perhaps it is time to see what else you can achieve. You have proven your mind, courage, and heart, but there are still mysteries in my world, challenges even I have not faced. Are you prepared to continue?" Elias looked toward the horizon where the sky began to brighten with alien dawn. He had faced trials, battles, and threats beyond imagination, yet he felt ready. "I am," he said. "Whatever comes next, I will face it with you." For the first time, the queen allowed a faint smile. "Then we move forward together. There is much to learn, much to defend, and much to explore, and perhaps there is more humanity in you than even you realize." Elias felt a quiet satisfaction. He had proven that humans could stand alongside beings far stronger, far older, and far more powerful than themselves. He had shown that courage, ingenuity, and heart could change outcomes, even in worlds where the odds seemed impossible. As they walked deeper into the palace, the queen and Elias prepared for what lay ahead, the final steps of their journey, where strategy, power, and trust would be tested like never before. The stakes had never been higher, yet Elias felt a surge of confidence. Humans had survived countless impossible odds on Earth, and here on a world of alien power they could do it again. The queen glanced at him, her eyes glowing softly. "Are you truly ready for what comes next?" she asked once more. Elias met her gaze, steady and unwavering. "I already am," he said. And in that simple truth, the bond between human and vampire queen strengthened, a partnership built on respect, courage, and the potential to change the course of their world forever. The night faded, and the first light of the alien sun bathed the palace in crimson and gold. Elias knew the final challenge awaited, one that would demand every skill, every ounce of courage, and every ounce of human ingenuity he had. But for the first time, he did not feel fear. He felt readiness, and that he knew was the true power of humanity. The sun rose slowly over the crimson valleys, casting long shadows across the palace. Elias stood beside the vampire queen, both of them surveying the aftermath of the battles. The valley was quiet now, though the air still hummed faintly with residual energy. The alien invaders had been repelled, the rogue vampirian defeated, but Elias knew the challenge was not truly over. The final trial, the one that would decide the fate of this world, was yet to come. From the distance, a new wave of energy pulsed, brighter and sharper than anything they had faced before. The queen's eyes narrowed, her usual calm giving way to tension. "This is it," she said, "the final test. If we fail, everything will fall, my throne, my people, your mission, and perhaps even your life." Elias did not flinch. He had faced danger before, seen impossible odds, and survived. But he understood that this was not just about strength. It was about trust, intelligence, courage, and the bond between them. Humans had always survived by adapting, by seeing patterns others missed, and by choosing to act when the moment demanded it. Now that skill would be tested like never before. The enemy emerged from the shadows, more organized, more powerful, and more relentless than anything Elias had imagined. Ships hovered above, creatures marched forward with armored limbs, and energy pulses filled the air. This was no ordinary invasion. It was a calculated assault designed to overwhelm and destroy everything in its path. Elias turned to the queen. "We need to combine every advantage we have. The palace, your abilities, our loyalists, and human ingenuity. We can win this if we act together." The queen nodded, her red eyes glowing with determination. "Then we begin." They moved swiftly. Elias directed the humans and vampirian alike, positioning them in strategic locations throughout the palace. He used the corridors, the energy systems, and the palace's living architecture to create traps and misdirections. Every move was calculated, designed to confuse the enemy, divide their forces, and give defenders the upper hand. The queen unleashed her full power, striking with precision and strength that seemed unstoppable. Her attacks shattered enemy ranks, yet she relied on Elia's guidance to predict movements, exploit weaknesses, and coordinate defenses. Together, human and Vampirian became an unpredictable force. The battle raged for hours. Energy pulses streaked through the sky, massive creatures fell into carefully laid traps, and the palace itself seemed to fight alongside its defenders. Elias' mind worked tirelessly, observing, calculating, and adapting. He directed the placement of barriers, adjusted strategies based on enemy behavior, and inspired both humans and Vampirian with his calm leadership. At the peak of the battle, the largest threat arrived, a massive alien vessel radiating energy that could destroy the palace in an instant. Elias studied it quickly, noting the patterns of its pulses and movements. "We can't let it strike the central spire," he said. "We'll redirect its energy using the palace's energy fields. If timed perfectly, we can turn its own attack against it." The queen's eyes widened slightly. "It is a bold plan, human. One mistake and we are destroyed." Elias met her gaze, steady and resolute. "We have no choice." "Trust me," the queen nodded. Elias focused on the palace's energy channels, feeling their flow, guiding it with precision. The massive vessel fired, sending a wave of energy toward the spire. At the exact moment, the palace redirected the attack, creating a controlled backlash that struck the vessel itself. The impact sent it tumbling, disabled and unable to continue its assault. The remaining invaders faltered, their formation broken, their morale shaken. Elias seized the moment, coordinating a final offensive. Loyalists struck with precision, using traps, energy pulses, and controlled attacks to eliminate the remaining threats. Even the most powerful creatures were caught off guard by human adaptability and strategy, falling one by one until the valley was silent once more. Elias exhaled deeply, exhausted but aware. They had won. The vampire queen approached, her expression a mixture of relief and admiration. "You have done what no one expected," she said. "Humans are not merely fragile or weak. You think, adapt, and face impossible odds with courage and clarity. You have proven your species remarkable." Elias smiled faintly. "We survive by learning, adapting, and making choices. That is what humans do, and we can do more when we work together." The queen studied him for a long moment, her gaze softening. "Few beings could have faced what you did and remained unbroken. You have earned my respect, my trust, and perhaps more than that. You have shown me that even in a world of power and immortality, choice, courage, and heart matter most." Elias felt the weight of her words. In choosing her, he had stepped into a world of danger, challenge, and uncertainty. Yet in that choice, he had also discovered something greater: the strength of humanity, the power of trust, and the possibility of changing destiny itself. The palace settled into quiet once more. Shadows no longer moved unpredictably, and the walls glowed softly, as if acknowledging the victory. Loyalists and humans alike regrouped, exhausted but triumphant. The valley below, once a battlefield, now lay calm under the alien dawn. The queen turned to Elias, her hand extended. "You chose me when most would have fled. You faced danger when others would have faltered, and you have survived what none could. Do you still choose this path, with me, with my people, and with this world?" Elias took her hand firmly. "I do. I chose this from the beginning, and I will continue to choose it. Together we can face anything." The queen's red eyes softened, and a rare smile curved her lips. "Then it is decided. You are not merely a guest in my world, human. You are a partner, a force to be reckoned with, and a symbol of what your species can achieve when they dare to face the impossible." For the first time, Elias felt fully at ease. The trials, the battles, and the tests had all been part of a journey that revealed something larger than himself. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was capable of courage, ingenuity, and resilience beyond what others could imagine. In this alien world, surrounded by beings of immense power, he had proven it. The queen led him through the palace, showing him chambers filled with knowledge, technology, and artifacts beyond human understanding. Yet she allowed him to explore, to ask questions, and to learn at his own pace. Elias realized that the victory was not merely over the invaders or the rogue faction. It was the beginning of a new era. Humans, through courage and ingenuity, could earn a place among beings far older and more powerful than themselves. As the alien sun rose higher, casting a warm glow across the valley, Elias and the queen stood together, looking out over the world they had defended. The vampire queen spoke softly, almost to herself. I asked if you wanted me and you chose the impossible. That is human. Elias smiled, understanding fully. Choice, courage, and trust had brought them here. Humanity had survived again, not through strength alone, but through intelligence, adaptability, and heart. And in this moment, those qualities had changed the course of a world. The queen turned to him. There will be other threats, other challenges. But for now, we have proven that even the impossible can be overcome. Together, Elias nodded. Together, he agreed. And in that simple word, the bond between human and vampire queen was sealed. A partnership built on respect, courage, and the shared knowledge that choice, above all else, was the greatest power of all. The palace hummed softly, the air alive with possibility. Shadows moved gently, no longer threatening but protective. The valley below gleamed in the light of the rising sun, reflecting the triumph of those who had dared to act, to trust, and to endure. Elias felt a sense of peace he had not known before. The battles were over, the invaders defeated, and the rogue faction vanquished. Yet he also knew this was only the beginning. There would be new challenges, new mysteries, and new opportunities. And through it all, humanity would stand, adapt, and prevail. For the first time, the vampire queen truly saw humans as she had never seen them before. Not fragile, not weak, but capable, courageous, and resilient. Elias had proven that even in a world of power and immortality, a single human's choice, intellect, and heart could make a difference. And that, she realized, was something worth respecting, valuing, and protecting. As Elias and the queen walked through the palace together, the air alive with energy and possibility, he understood that this was a victory not only of battle, but of spirit. Humans, in choosing courage over fear, action over hesitation, and understanding over ignorance, had proven themselves a force that could not be ignored. The sun rose fully over the horizon, casting light across the valley and the palace. Elias looked at the queen, and she met his gaze with a mixture of admiration, respect, and something deeper, almost unspoken. They had faced the impossible together and emerged victorious. Humanity had triumphed, not through strength alone, but through intelligence, courage, and heart.